At the heart of a hate crime law is enhancement of penalty. So in some sense, a hate crime law is a punitive law. It's increasing the amount of punishment the state can impose. So it does raise all sorts of issues about the state's reliance on punishment, communities' reliance on punishment. In the early years of passing hate crime laws, many groups were very much opposed to these laws on different grounds. One common argument you heard was we don't need another way to let the state punish people, enhancing the penalty. Another argument you often heard, going back to the 90s when there was more controversy around these laws, this is not fair, to use the term you asked in the question, because isn't an assault an assault an assault regardless of who it's done to? Isn't a vandalism or a trespass or a homicide, how can you possibly hierarchically arrange victims? Suffering is suffering. The opposition to these kinds of laws were anchored in a whole bunch of more abstract principles about fairness, due process, protection of free speech, even free speech around bigotry, about not having content discrimination. Over the years, the laws that have withstood constitutional challenge have been written in a way that applies to everyone. So you can have a hate crime against, let's say, a white person. You can, and we have had hate crimes against straight people. The idea is that the status characteristic mattered, not the content of that characteristic. So it is a punishment reliance technique. But I would also say it's a symbolic technique. What hate crimes laws did was provide a mechanism to say out loud, we care about minorities who differentially suffer violence. We care about those people, and we care about those communities that get the symbolism of that violence. So let me just use a classic example, a cross burning on a black family's lawn. Classic example in US history. There is the harm done to that family, and that is significant. But there is also the harm done to the black community who sees that event, understands exactly what it communicates, and lives with that reality. So the underlying logic of a hate crime law is that the damage is not just done to the individual victim, it's done to similarly situated people. Same with a gay bashing, same with the desecration of a synagogue, same with anti-immigration violence. That was the counter logic at the time, that we assign penalties based on harm all the time. Think about the enhanced penalty you would get if something involved assaulting an officer. Think about the enhanced penalty you would get if something's gang related. The US legal system has precedent for relying on enhanced penalties to communicate a set of values, don't touch our peace officers, and an assessment of harm. The more harm, the higher the penalty. What the Vera project is going to do is delve deep into different sectors of the community, from community groups who take a particular interest in the status and welfare of members of the community, to law enforcement who want to understand how best to identify and respond to a bias incident or a bias crime, and of course those who have been victimized. So what's really wonderful about this program, this initiative, the research, is that it's going to address this issue from multiple vantage points, and from my point of view, that's really the ideal way to understand it. A lot of research is done from a particular vantage point. We have studies of bias crime policing. We have studies of legislation around bias crime. We have studies of victimization. Those are all very important. What this project is going to do, which I think is unique, to my knowledge, no other project has done this, is that it's taking on the issue from multiple points of view, with multiple constituencies, and trying to do what I think to be a 360 around hate crime in America. And I think the Vera Institute's well placed to do that. Its focus on Los Angeles and New Jersey are ideal sites. You get East Coast, West Coast. They have the right personnel, and we'll see what comes of it.